Hello everyone, welcome. Here we share true stories from real people. Today we have a story. My wife tried to pass another man's baby on to me, so I left her with absolutely nothing. Original story. I, 37 male, and my wife, 37 female, have been together for about 15 years and married for 10 of those. Back during the days when we were still dating, we were really big on children. I had a lot of siblings growing up, most of them younger than me, and I've always been great with kids. My wife has always pictured a family with 3 or 4 children since she was young, so we were well in sync on that. Unfortunately, as you grow older, you realize that everything doesn't always go the way that you want it to, and after we got married about 10 years ago, that quickly became clear. We had dated for about 5 years, so we never felt the need to take our time with anything. We went straight to trying to conceive, but it just didn't work for us, which is very sad. When I say that we tried everything, I really mean it, even though things that you normally know wouldn't work, but we were so desperate for a baby, so you really can't blame us for going all the way. Well, here's a bit of the spoiler alert. It's been 10 years and we don't have a baby yet. Of what I'm writing this for, as you'll soon realize. As all couples go and they look into conceiving, have experienced, there have been times when it looked like things had finally happened, only for that time of the month to show up some days late. There were about 2 instances where we actually got a positive pregnancy test, but about 2 months later, in both cases, she miscarried, which was extremely painful for both of us to experience. I know I'm talking a lot about things that have happened in the past, but I think it's very important for you to understand how important it is for both of us to have a child. And before you asked, we have been to several doctors. I've had my man juice times that I admit, and yes, several swimmers pass with flying colors. My wife has also had so many different medical tests done for herself as well. And for the most part, the experts weren't able to determine why we might not able to conceive. We've tried in vitro fertilization, but that failed. We've considered adoption and surrogacy, but we might be a bit too old-fashioned for that, and those options likely won't expire for us, at least not anytime soon. So there really isn't a rush until we figure out that we truly can't have a child on our own. Also, it's important to realize how much we've gone through at the hands of relatives. We both come from rather traditional families, which is likely why we're so big on kids. However, not being able to have our own children means that has backfired because traditional families like ours see children as almost a necessity, and without them, you've somehow failed at life. I blame her very strong religious beliefs for that. My wife got the most of the brunt from both sides of the relatives, though I haven't been exempt myself, especially with male relatives liking to make dumb comments about how they've never seen a man from our family unable to put a baby in someone. Again, I've gone through all the tests a man can go through, and I really don't think that I can be convinced any further that there's anything wrong with me. Anyway, that's enough blabber. Let me get to the actual story. My wife and I sleep with each other very frequently. It used to be because we were trying for a baby, but at that point, it just seemed kind of like it became a habit. Even after we got to the point where we both seemed to mostly accept that it wasn't going to happen for us. On my side, though, I want to know that I tried my best to have a child of my own, so I don't start to wonder whether I could have done more by the time I'm 80. So since we do the deed so often, there's really no room for me to suspect foul play on the rare occasion that we think that she's gotten pregnant. This time around, she missed her period and we started to get excited, but of course we had to temper that excitement because we've gone a decade without any luck in the pregnancy department, so why would we put all our hopes on a missed period? However, after the next period was missed, my wife decided to do a pregnancy test, and lo and behold, it was positive. Honestly, I was ecstatic. Sure, there was a bit of doubt and apprehensive that she'd miscarry like the other times, but I think that side was a lot less than I thought it would be. I felt like being very positive about it would help the chances of the pregnancy being seen through the end. Though, of course, 9 months is a very long time, but I had hope. Well, very thankfully, the pregnancy actually got to the 5-month mark, and I genuinely don't think I've ever been happier in my entire life because we had never had a pregnancy last that long before. Honestly, I had been hopeful that there was a part of me, however, that never imagined I'd see a pregnancy get to that point. My wife was so happy too, obviously, and I was glad to see her like that because she really got the worst part of the scrutiny from relatives. And this was like a big middle finger to all of them. In fact, I noticed that my wife's relatives were so much nicer to me than they were before. While it sucked that it seemed that part of their kindness was locked behind us having a baby, I was glad to have it regardless. Now the part where I realized that something might have been wrong was when we were watching a local TV show, and there was a plot line about a woman who cheated on her husband and got pregnant with her lover's baby. This is a show that we watch quite a bit, but I noticed something was off when my wife said that she wanted to watch something else. She wasn't too pushy about it, and when I asked her why she wasn't interested anymore, she put it on the pregnancy. A lot of changes when a woman is pregnant, so honestly I wasn't too suspicious about it. I eventually switched to another program, and she seemed to be more settled at that point. But for the rest of the night, she was acting odd, and I noticed her shooting me glances. But apart from that, I didn't dwell on it too much. I think it became evident that I had to figure things out when my wife and I were watching TV a few days after that. I remember it was a weekend and the exact same episode of that show came on as a rerun. Her reaction was very similar. She suddenly didn't feel like watching it anymore, and that was when I realized that I might have to get to the bottom of things. I asked her if she was okay, and she said that she was, again citing the pregnancy as the reason for her wanting to watch something else. That time around, I didn't notice any odd behavior, though maybe I simply wasn't as observant the second time. I was really overthinking things at that point. The day after, which was just a few days ago, I spoke to one of my good friends about the whole situation, and he was the one that made me see that it could potentially be a case of my wife feeling uncomfortable with what happened in the TV episode because that's what she was guilty of. Honestly, it sounded very ridiculous to me, but the more he spoke, the more it started to make sense. The thing is, I didn't want to accept what he was saying because that would potentially mean that what is supposed to be the happiest moment of my life is about to turn into a whole case of treachery and infidelity, and I really don't know if I can deal with that. Honestly, I'll admit that part of me doesn't want to dive into this to potentially finding the answers because I'm afraid of what I could find that could devastate me, and after waiting so long for a child, I'm really not sure whether I could take that if it were to happen. So that's what brings me here. I've tried my best to drop all the details I can about the situation. Hopefully you guys might have a theory or two about why that specific episode of the show makes my wife so shifty, and maybe it has nothing to do with what happens in that episode. Maybe it really just is the pregnancy hitting her at the worst times. I'll stick around to read the comments and answer the ones that I can. Edit 1. So I see some people asking me to detail her reaction to the episode a bit better, so I'll try to. When the show came on and the episode started, she settled in with excitement the way that she always does, especially when it was clear that it wasn't an episode that we hadn't seen before. However, as the plot started to become clearer and clearer, I noticed that her excitement wasn't as noticeable as before. Again, I didn't think too much of it at the time because her reason for it was very valid. However, it was the second time, a minute or two into the episode, once it was clear it was a rerun, and she realized what episode it was a rerun of. That's when a similar change in her demeanor came up. This time around, we didn't even get to the part where it was clear that it was a story about infidelity. Again, I didn't pay attention to this because I really was wondering what was going on, and I must have sort of zoned out, but I genuinely don't think that she acted as weird as the first time, maybe because we didn't actually get to that part of the episode. Edit 2. Someone said that I should ask her straight up. The 10 years of marriage is meant to afford honesty. You have to learn is all I can say. Edit 3. I've gone through like 90% of the comments, but they keep popping up, so I'll have to call WS on it at this point. But I've seen a lot of supportive comments and suggestions, so I'll see what my next move could potentially be, and I'll get back to all of you. Thanks. Now for the updates. Update. This isn't the kind of update I was looking to give, but I think it's only right that I let you all know how things went. There's a lot of good advice in the comments of my first post, and I was really ready to sculpt a plan for some of the suggestions that were made. But my emotions ultimately got the better of me and everything fell apart. Honestly, considering the paternity of a child, I've desired for over a decade is on the line. I really don't think you can blame me for that. At least I hope you don't. So the idea that I was hoping to go for was to find a chance to look through her messages by borrowing her MacBook. I would also be able to look at her social media, and I knew her laptop would be a better bet if I needed time more than her phone. I was trying to figure out how to make an excuse for why I couldn't use my own laptop, but honestly, I didn't get a chance to get that far. My wife and I usually have been truthful to each other, and all the emotional stress I was going through overthinking the situation made me finally ask her straight up. Looking back, I realized how utterly stupid that was, and I keep beating myself up over it. But the way my mind was back then, I just needed to get the weight off and find the truth. So yes, I asked her straight up. I think the way it came out of my mouth was something like, "Why were things different this time? We didn't do anything different, so why did it work this time? I know the test said that there was nothing wrong with me, but I've been overthinking whether the baby is mine." Needless to say, she flipped out. I started trying to calm her down because I was very concerned about her fury and not affecting the baby. But obviously, I had just accused her of cheating on me and trying to pass someone else's baby on to me. So even I can say it was justified. I feel like complete crap every time that I replay how things went. Honestly, it was very unpleasant. Eventually she calmed down, but she told me that I couldn't stay at home that day. Again, I felt like it was justified, and I think from her reaction and how genuine it seemed to me that I actually messed up. It has to be my baby at this point. I really hope I'll be able to get her to forgive me. There's only one thing that makes me feel a bit uncertain, though. As I was grabbing a few things that I needed to spend the night somewhere else, I heard her on the phone talking to someone in hushed tones. The problem is I don't know who it was, and I couldn't hear a word. I just know there was whispering going on. By the time I went back to the room she was in, she wasn't on the call anymore. That part is making my paranoia kick in. But I saw where that took me the last time, so I'm really trying to wash it out of my head and not think too much of it. Honestly, this happened 2 days ago. This is my second night out of the house, and I decided that I might as well write this, all as there was a way of letting my emotions escape. I'm looking forward to what y'all have to say about the situation, though I'm afraid your input may eventually lead to even more overthinking. I can't handle it. I hope let it rip, pending whenever my wife will let me back home. Edit 1. This is what I was afraid of. Someone said that her anger was simply good acting, and maybe being kicked out of the house is a ploy for my pregnant wife to move her lover in for a few days and roam around. I don't know why, but I think that is very unlikely. Well, the move-in part at least. Because now I'm overthinking whether she's now more openly engaging with him since I'm nowhere around. The situation is not fun. Edit 2. Okay, so the general consensus is that her episode of rage doesn't necessarily mean that she's innocent. Apparently, I'm too trusting though. She's my wife, so I should trust her to some degree, right? I do see the point everyone is making. I had a cheating partner when I was much younger, and gaslighting comes easy to them, so I think I'm going to agree that I was too quick to accept her anger as the answer that I was looking for. Edit 3. So this might be a bit of a longer edit, but it should be the last one for now. I'm back at home, though it took a total of 4 days for me to be let back in. I'm back now, though, and that's what matters. There was a whole period of awkwardness, but things sort of got back to normal relatively quickly. Almost as soon as they did, I decided to use my brain this time and keep my emotions under wraps. I decided to go through with a laptop plan that I had, and I actually got her to hand the laptop to me, apparently with no suspicion. The problem is I found nothing. There wasn't a single suspicious person in her messages, and trust me, I went deep through the messages of the people who were unfamiliar to me. I checked her Facebook too, but I couldn't check her Instagram because it wasn't logged in on her computer, so I couldn't take a look at that. But honestly, there didn't seem to be anything missing. The only thing of note was that she seemed to talk quite often with a guy named Ryan, but I dug through her messages and found nothing even remotely inappropriate. Again, I may be overthinking things, but now I'm wondering whether things were too clean. Maybe she got rid of everything close to inappropriate between her and Ryan. The thing is, I know there is no way for me to prove my theory unless she slips up. So for now, I'll just keep observing, but I just want to say that I really want to be proven wrong. I don't know if I can take the heartbreak of being on the cusp of becoming a father and having that taken from me. I'm scared of what I'll become if it happens. Hopefully it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't. Update. Again, I've messed up big time and I don't even know who to blame beyond myself. Honestly, it was another case of me starting to lose my mind because of the uncertainty of the entire situation. I'm the kind of person who, feeling like there's a 10% probability of something being a lie, will start to get paranoid and overanalyze that 10% until I can get a solid answer. At this point, once I started to doubt that the child wasn't mine, that was when things started to go to crap. I'd blame my friend who suggested the scenario first, but most of you agreed with his assessment of the situation, so I suppose I was just too dumb to see it myself. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase and say that I ended up talking with my wife regarding this situation again. I knew it could potentially end horribly, so I started the entire conversation trying to paint my emotions in a way where she'd understand that I wasn't accusing her outright. I just needed the reassurance. At this point, true honesty wasn't enough for me, so I needed conclusive evidence so I'd go back to living my life normally. Boys, I asked her to do a DNA test. Big flipping mistake. I agree with that. We sat in the living room, and after I explained everything, to which she quietly listened and didn't explode like the last time, I suggested that she'd go for a DNA test. I had done some reading, and I realized that I didn't even need to wait for the baby to be born before it could be made certain whether I was the father. All it would take was a blood sample, and I told her all of this. She listened in absolute silence and didn't say a word until I asked, "What do you think?" Yeah, it didn't go well. She simply stood up without a word and went into her bedroom. From the sound of things, I knew that she was packing her clothes. A DNA test is probably never going to be an easy thing for a man to ask a woman to get. I don't know whether there's a trick to it, but I suppose a happy marriage might be shaken heavily by a paternity test request. I get it, but I wish she understood where I was coming from too. I simply needed to be reassured. It seemed like the only way to stop me from going crazy because I was about to have my first child after waiting for so freaking long, and the sudden success had me so concerned. I know how stupid it sounds and how unfair it is on her, but that means that there was no way to get what I really wanted after so long that I wouldn't have been suspicious of her. Maybe things just finally clicked, and all the stars were aligned right, but I still needed the reassurance. I know it makes me sound like an insecure guy. I've told myself that already. She eventually left the house. I tried to stop her, but she just wordlessly held a hand in my face and I just let her go. I felt so defeated because even an idiot could have told you that crap wouldn't have ended well. But it was such an impulsive thing. Anyway, she's walked out on me and she's not picking up my phone calls. It's been a week already. I've been able to speak to her sister she's currently living with, so I know she's fine and I know where she's at. Her entire family hates me now and has spent every brief opportunity since cursing me out. The part that hurts the most is that I'm finally about to have a baby and I've soured the entire thing. She told me that she wants a divorce over text, and I haven't had the guts to reply to it. I'm in no rush to pursue that, and I'm just hoping things can calm down so that I can apologize profusely and hope that she can forgive me. I love her so much, and I've done something so unforgivable, but it happened in my attempt to keep us and her family safe. So I'm probably an idiot, but I was a well-meaning one. Not that it helps me sleep any better at night. That's where things stand now. She's in the middle of divorcing me, and I think she's about to take away my future as a dad with her. I can't even really blame her, but that's where I'm at right now. Please tell me what to do next to fix this. Edit. You guys have had a lot of ideas about what I should have done. Maybe I was wrong to be suspicious, but there was nothing I could have done to stop that. I should have brought her family into it and let them convince her to get the DNA test done. Maybe a calming voice would have gotten through to her, and I would have been able to be satisfied with the result. I just don't know if it could have been or would have made any difference if I couldn't have kept it all in. Update. I know it's been a while since my last update. Honestly, things have been a mess, and I wasn't even sure if it was worth continuing to share this story. but I guess it's therapeutic in a way, so here goes. After my wife moved out, I tried to give her space. It wasn't easy because every day without her felt like torture, and I kept beating myself up over how I handled everything. I kept replaying all of our conversations in my head, thinking about what I should have said or done differently. But none of that mattered because I had really screwed up. I reached out to her sister a few more times trying to see if there was any chance of talking to my wife directly. Each time her sister was firm but not entirely dismissive. She said my wife needed time to cool off and that pushing too hard would only make things worse. She told me to be patient, but that's easier said than done when you're losing everything that matters to you. In the meantime, I decided to take a different approach. I started seeing a therapist to help me deal with my insecurities and anxiety. That's a good decision. I knew that I needed to work on myself if I ever had a chance of making things right with my wife. The therapist helped me to understand where my fears were coming from and how they were affecting my behavior. It was eye-opening, and I realized that I had a lot to work on myself. About a month after my wife moved out, I finally got a text from her. She said that she was willing to meet and talk. I was nervous as hell, but also relieved. We agreed to meet at a neutral place, a cafe that we used to go to when we were dating. When I saw her, I felt like my heart was going to explode. She looked tired but still beautiful. We sat down and there was an awkward silence for a moment. Then she started talking. She told me how hurt she was by my accusations and how it made her feel like I didn't trust her at all. She said that she needed time to think about everything and that's why she moved out. She needed to decide if she could stay with someone who doubted her so deeply. I apologized profusely. I told her about the therapy, how I was working on my issues, and how much I regretted what I did. I told her I loved her and that I wanted to be there for her and our baby. She listened quietly, and when I was done, she said that she needed more time. She wasn't sure if she could forgive me yet, but she appreciated that I was trying to change. We started talking more frequently after that. It was slow and painful, but it was progress. She told me about her pregnancy and how things were going with the baby. I could tell that she was still guarded, but at least she was talking to me. A few weeks ago, she agreed to go to couples therapy with me. The sessions were tough, and there were days when I feel like we're not making any progress, but then there are moments when I see a glimmer of hope, a small sign that maybe we can get through all this. I know it's going to be a long road, and I have to be patient. As for the DNA test, I haven't brought it up again. I decided to let it go for now. I realized that if I kept pushing for it, it would only drive her further away. I have to trust that the baby is mine and focus on rebuilding our relationship. If we can get back to a place of trust and love, then maybe we can talk about it in the future. But for now, I just have to and want her to know that I'm here for her and that I'm doing everything I can to be a better husband and father. So that's where we're at. It's not a happy ending yet, but it's a start. I'm still scared, still unsure of what the future holds, but I'm trying to stay hopeful. Thank you all for your support and advice. It means a lot to know that there are people out there who care. I'll keep you posted on how things go from here. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.